What's up guys, Noah from Stage 3 Motorsports, and today we're going to be showing you how to do an install on this GU Autotech multimedia station for the F150. Now this can work on multiple packages of trucks. We're going to be doing it on our 2017 F150 Raptor, but you'll basically follow the exact same steps if you have a regular XL or XLT, Platinum, whatever it may be. So let's get right into it. So to start off removing the center dash area and getting all the trim out of the way, we're actually going to begin back here at where there's a speaker. Now, we have the Sony system in our Raptor. If you have a regular F150, you won't have a Sony speaker, but really it all comes apart the same way, so that isn't going to change much, and it's basically just pressure fitted in here. So you're going to have to pry on it a little bit to get it to pop up. Okay, there we go. You can see that there's just these 4 plastic clips on the back that hold it down. It's gonna feel like you're gonna break it when you pop it up, but it does have quite a bit of force that's needed to pry it out of there. So we've got that free. We'll set it off to the side. Now back here behind your speaker, you're gonna see that there's 2 little screws, and you can just use a little ratchet with a 7mm socket on there to get down into it. And then from there, we'll be able to lift it and kind of pry this thing out. Now from here, I like to typically kind of lift from the back, get it pried up, and you're gonna want to take your body tool and pop the front clips up. So there's one on each side, just like that. Then make sure to disconnect this little clip for your speaker wiring, and that's just a little pinch and pull. Get that out of the way. And if you look at the bottom, you see there's the 3 pressure fit tabs that were holding it in. Comes out pretty simply. Now we can set that off to the side. Now with the dash tray out of the way, we're going to remove these 2 screws here holding this top trim piece that goes over the sync system. And this is going to be a 7mm as well. With those screws removed, now we need to bring this whole center piece forward, and it's going to be held in by some clips that are behind it. So you're going to have to kind of bend it, put some pressure on. It should just unclip. You can kind of work your way down. There we go. Now we've got that forward. There's going to be a couple connectors on the back here that we're going to have to get out of our way so we can get this apart. And I typically start at the top with these buttons. So with these ones, you're going to want to push on this little tab in the side of the clip as you pull it back, and it should just pop out. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get your fingernail in there to pinch it, but once you've got it pulled, then just a little bit of pressure will wiggle it back and get it free for you. Now down here, this big black clip is kind of a confusing one to try and undo, but you're gonna pinch at the bottom and then just pull out. So you can see at the bottom here, there's a little bit of a textured area. That's what you're pinching on to release the clip, and then it should just come free. Now this bigger connector is gonna have another little pinch section at the bottom, and you may have to give it a few little wiggles here to work it back. There we go. And it should just slide out of place. Now we can move this whole unit out of the way. Now to remove the main screen from your console, there's going to be 3 screws on each side of it. These are also going to be 7mm, so you can use the same ratchet, just add an extension to it to make it a little easier. And you want to be especially careful when you pull these out that you don't let them drop down, because they can actually slip down through here, back behind the dash, and it is very hard to get them back after that point. With all the screws out of the way, this thing is just going to pop forward, kind of gently lift it out, and then there's of course going to be a couple different connections on the back that we need to get rid of so we can get the screen all the way out of the way. So we'll start up here in the corner with this little blue plug. We're just going to pinch the bottom of it and pull back. Then we'll do the smaller black plug here. Now for this main multi-pin connector here, it's got kind of a weird latch system going on. You basically have to push down behind the gray latch and then slide that up, and it'll force this out of the connector. You can just lift it out of the way, and now we've got our screen free and clear. We need to remove our CD player from the bottom, and this has 4 screws, 2 on each side. We'll pull those out, and then we can slide this forward as well. Okay, with the screws out of the way, you can pull this forward. Now, at first, it's gonna not just slide out as easily as you might think, and it's because there's actually kind of a rubber section that slots in the back that puts some pressure on it. So you just have to give it a little bit more force, and it'll pop forward. Just slide it out here. And then we're gonna have some connections on the back. There's gonna be a multi-pin that we need to pinch and pop out from the corner. Then another one more towards the center. And then these 2 corner connections. There we go. Okay, perfect. So then looking at the back there, you can see this sort of rubber section that slots into the inside of the dash. That was what was giving us some pressure, but now this is all free and clear, and we've got all of our wiring still in the truck, so we'll set this aside. So I've got all of our connectors pulled forward here in the dash, and obviously everything's clearing out of the way. So what we need to deal with now is getting this new harness plugged in. Some of these ports are gonna go straight into the back of that new screen that's on the Autotech, but some of these are actually gonna adapt between the screen and the plugins in the car. So we'll start with some of these bigger connectors, and you can kind of just guess your way through it by figuring out which ones fit where, but we'll show you what plugs work for what. So first off, we'll grab the large gray connector with the lever on it here, and this is going to slot in place with this adapter, and it's got a couple white and black wires going into the back of it. You'll just push that in with some pressure and then lock it down with the gray clip on the top. Then for the multi-pin connectors in the middle, we're going to adapt these to these 2 black plugs. These 3 connectors are going to be the only ones that we have to worry about adapting right into the vehicle. Now the rest of these are actually going to connect to our screen as well as some of the ports back here. So let's grab that screen. So the back of the GU Autotech unit has a lot of different ports on it, but once again, you could almost just guess your way through by looking at these, which ones are going to plug in where. We're still going to show you, and we'll actually start at the top corner here because this is one of the more confusing ones where you've got 3 plugs that are fairly similar. So if we rest the screen over here, we'll start by taking this multicolored multi-pin plug. It should have a yellow, green, and a blue on it. And this is gonna go in the very top corner. You plug that straight down. We can actually disconnect these to get those out of the way for the moment. Then this cable with the purple and white and gray wires coming out of it is gonna go in the middle section. So we'll kind of snake this around and clip it in. And then lastly, of course, we've got this 3rd black plug, and this one's got yellow and orange wire on it that kind of notate it differently from the other 2, and that's just gonna go in this final slot. Make sure those are all pushed in there. Then we can move this yellow cable back around, and you're gonna connect the 2 yellow jacks together. Now for this white multi-pin connector, you'll notice that it doesn't match up with anything on the back of the unit, and that's because it's gonna go with this agreement box that came in your kit. And you'll see that that just kind of lines up right here. Rotate it over. Push it into place until it clicks. And there is some 3M adhesive on the back of this so you can stick it inside the dash when the time comes, but you just wanna make sure that that's attached in place. Then we've got 3 other wires that are gonna come in the kit, not connected to anything. So these are gonna adapt to the back of our main head unit. We're gonna start with this black cable that looks almost like a USB. It's gonna plug in right to this port. Should get a nice click when it's in there. And this is actually gonna plug into the surround that has the dials at the bottom. So we'll use that in a bit. Then you've got an adapter that's gonna go up here on this tan colored port. Once again, this will connect in a little while, but we're gonna leave it hanging. And then lastly, you're gonna have a smaller multi-pin connector. It's gonna go on the far edge. And just nice click into place. With all these cables connected, we can rotate the unit up now. It's gonna make it a little harder to see, and you do have to be kind of creative here to keep this propped into place. But we're gonna move the wires that are already there over and out of the way so we can see. Now, if your truck already has GPS or navigation, you'll have a blue connector for that antenna, and that can connect up here on the back of the unit. If your truck doesn't have navigation and you're adding it with this, you're gonna need to use the antenna provided in your kit, attach it to the back here, and then just wire it into the front of the dash. So it's not too complex, but we're gonna reuse the wire that we already have. And this will just connect in the back. Now at the very bottom, we have 2 ports here that are gonna work for our climate control and air conditioning. We'll do the multi-pin, larger one first. There we go. Then you're gonna take this angle cut connector. You may have to sort of bend the harness just a little bit to get it to pop into place correctly and clip it in. Now finally, there's one really small little multi-pin connector that's gonna go down here above the air conditioning controls and just punch into that little port. Now moving to this little adapter wire that went underneath your antenna, this is gonna plug into the lower radio wire that has a black end on it. So that'll just clip together with just one little socket. And that's gonna be all the connections we need on the back of this right now. We'll deal with these 2 connectors in a minute that are gonna go to the front shroud that surrounds it, as well as these plugs that came off the top for some of your camera buttons, hazard lights, and things like that. But let's move some of the wires back into the dash and get this somewhat in place. So once you have some of the cables pushed back into the dash, you're gonna wanna get your head unit lifted into place, but make sure that you have these 2 ends sticking out at the bottom that are gonna connect to your plastic surround. And also you're gonna want this 3-pin connector at the top where you can connect your mic. So we have all of those free and clear. We'll get this adjusted into place. And it does have some alignment pins that'll help you get this squared up. And from there, we're just gonna reuse our factory hardware to mount all 4 corners. Now, before we do the surround on the head unit here, we're gonna grab our factory one, and you're gonna need to remove these buttons at the top to reuse them in the new surround. So some of you guys will have a camera button if you have a Raptor like ours or have that option. If you don't have that, there is a delete on the new one. But to pop these out, it's actually very simple. There's just little tabs on the side here that you pinch. And as you pinch them in, you actually wanna push forward on the connector so that it'll come out from the face. So squeeze that in there. Wiggle it forward. There's our camera button. Then we'll do the hazard and auto stop start. That's for the middle. And lastly, we can do the traction control. There we go, and that'll be for the other side. And from there, we can set this out of the way because we're not gonna need it anymore. Now here on our new surround, you'll see that there's the cutouts, as I mentioned, for these buttons, and you'll have a delete plate that comes in here from the factory. You can just pop that out if you do have a camera. So we'll start with that on ours, and you're just gonna basically position it from the front into the slot, put some pressure on it, make sure it clicks, and that one's good to go. Then we've got our traction control and hill descent that'll go on the corner, clip it into place, and of course the hazard and auto stop start in the middle. And it should fit nice and clean, just like factory right there underneath. Now we've got all of our ports lined up. We have all the cables accessible where we need them. So let's start connecting this thing to the rest of the head unit. And we'll go down to the bottom and do this USB style cable first. That'll click into place. Then we have this other small multi-pin right here. Slide that in front of the shifter. Now take your mic cable here on the back of the surround and connect that to this little 3-pin at the top of your harness. Then from there, we've got these last 3 plugs that are gonna go to the buttons at the top. And you'll remember when you disconnected them, they're actually pretty much cut to length for which button they correlate to, but there is also a green marker for the camera one, and then the middle, the wire colors are gonna be the brown and purple. So go ahead and get these plugged in. Okay, with all that connected, you push the wiring back, and this is going to use just plastic clips to pressure fit into place. All right, the plastic surround is all in place and clipped in. All of our buttons and stuff are plugged in the way they should be. So now we have those 2 factory screws that we pulled out earlier that are going to go in the top to secure this, and then we can do the rest of the dash tray. Okay, with our tray, make sure you reattach that speaker wire that was in here at the bottom. Clip that in, and then we can put some pressure on the front. That should clip down, and now we just have to do the 2 screws in the back. All right, now we just take our speaker cover and line it up with those clips again. Just put pressure down on all 4 corners and it should sit flush. And that's gonna get this tray in place, and it'll also be a wrap on the actual install process of this GU Autotech head unit. Now, the install is one step of it. What we need to do now is actually reconnect our battery so we have power going, and then we can go through the setup process to get this thing dialed in for our truck. And you don't want to skip on that setup process. It's actually what determines what vehicle you have this installed to, so it knows what features that vehicle has and you can get the best functionality out of it. So let's jump into that. So I went ahead, reconnected our battery, got everything buttoned up. So we're gonna hit the start-stop button, get the truck keyed up here. Now, if you have a key, obviously you'll just turn the key to accessory to get this turned on, and it'll go through a quick startup sequence. All right, so when it pops up, it'll usually default to radio when you first run it. There is a home button where you can see it'll show you a calendar and time, date, all that sort of things. But for the actual setup, you're gonna wanna go to this top menu and scroll over. Once you see this gear for settings, tap that. Then within settings, you'll have a few basic ones right off the top where you can select your radio region, temperature units, stuff like that. But we're gonna go over to system. Now, in system here, we wanna go to software version at the bottom. And it's gonna seem a little bit weird, but to access the next menu, we need to tap OS and MCU 3 times. So once you've done that, it's gonna pull up a separate configuration menu. We're gonna go all the way down to configuration settings at the bottom. Now in here is where you're gonna determine what vehicle you have and get this set up so it knows your truck and the options that it came with. So ours already has some of this memorized from when I programmed it before, but I'll show you. You'll start first at models, and you have F150, 250, 350, and 450. Obviously the Raptor is an F150, we're gonna keep it on that. Then within series, we're gonna determine which actual package we have. So if you have a base model XL work truck, you'll start there, work your way up for Lariat, King Ranch, or whatever else. And if you scroll, it'll continue down to Platinum, Raptor, and Limited. Ours is on Raptor, which is right for what we have, so we'll leave that there. Then in AC, this is gonna be for all of your climate control options within the vehicle. So XLT and base trucks come with just bare bones, no heated seats, nothing wild. XLT with heated seats is obviously for that package. And then 500A and up is pretty much everything else. So a lot of the Platinum trucks or Raptors and things like that have the 500A and plus packages. So we're gonna leave ours on that system. Moving on to the speaker setup, there's an option for just a regular audio package and then the B&O upgraded audio. Normal works for basically everything else. This truck is actually Sony, not B&O, so we're gonna leave it on normal. Then at the very bottom here, we have an AVM listed one, and this is gonna be basically referencing the truck's camera systems. So if you have none of the 360 stuff on your vehicle and it's very bare bones XL, you'll just select none. If you have the full 360 suite, then you're gonna select AVM, and that's what our Raptor has. And lastly, we have an AVM with touch control option, which is usually found on the Super Duties, and that's where you have the touch interface with the actual cameras. So select which one applies to your truck, Once that's done, you want to come down to the very bottom where it says save. Make sure you tap that so that it locks in all of your settings. It'll tell you configuration completed. You can hit OK. And then from there, you can go right back to home and everything should be dialed in and work the way that you need it. Obviously, you want to make sure you go through and check that you can turn your AC on and off when you have the vehicle on. Your climate control will be within this arrow. So that's where you can see if your fan speed works. You can toggle it up and down. You have dual climate. You can turn on your seat heaters and seat ventilation, everything you need there. So make sure you walk through it. If you wired everything the proper way, you shouldn't have any issues. And after that configuration's done, you're ready to go. So guys, that's a wrap on this install. As always, thank you for watching. And if you're interested in picking up one of these GU Autotech systems for your truck, head down that description below, click the link, it'll shoot you over to our website. And if you're doing this install and you need some more resources or you need to see some wiring diagrams and things like that, we'll try to put some links down there as well that'll go to all the documents that they have on GU Autotech's page. So definitely check those out to make sure you got everything right, and I'll see you guys next time.